Hi, I'm Ray, back again from the radio workshop. There's the Coast Guard. Hang on, there's the phone. Can you believe it? Sorry about that. Rude interruption. Yeah, as I was saying, in the workshop, I'm just about to restore this one. Look at that lovely ivory. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. I've got it going at least. What I'm here for is pirates. Now, not the type out at sea with a patch, not Captain Pugwash, but medium wave radio pirates back in the 1960s and early 70s. I've just watched a couple of my other videos, and what I don't want people to think is that I spent my entire youth and early 20s every Sunday pirating. That wasn't the case. When I think back, in a year, okay, in a sort of 52 weeks of the year, I was probably only, well, I say the lads, not me, I was watching, the lads were probably only pirating, 8 Sundays, perhaps 10 Sundays out of the whole year, and that was only for a couple of hours. So, I just don't want people to think I just sort of spent my teens and early 20s always pirating. I spent all the other Sundays building the transmitters ready for the Sundays when we did pirate. No, so there we are. Now, the thing is, trying to recall things that happened, let me see, getting on for 50 years ago. I'm trying to think, what stories can I tell? Because I've had a lot of emails from people, more stories. It's great, I can't remember, it's a long time ago. But one, I woke up in the night and I thought, I've got the next story, I know what it is. It includes a girl, a young woman, sort of 20, 21 years old, with a pram in the park. Now, intriguing, what's all that about? As I've said before, you don't want to get caught, there's no point in that. You've got to choose your transmitting site carefully. No good being, as that chap was out in his boat, a couple of 100 yards, remember that video? You stand on the beach, there he is, pirate flag, it's me, I'm here, I'm pirating. Now, that's crazy. There's brilliant fun though, but crazy. I suppose it was all crazy really. So you've got to hide the transmitter somewhere. Now, it's not only hiding the transmitter, that is relatively easy. You can dig a hole, put it in the ground, cover a bit of wood over it with leaves all over it, aerial up in the tree. That is the problem, the aerial up in the tree. On medium wave, you've got to have a pretty decent aerial. It's no good having sort of 10 feet of wire just hanging out of the window. Yes, it'll work, with a decent ATU. You'll load up the aerial, okay, but it's not going to go very far. Even with some decent power into that piece of wire, you're not going to cover the whole town. And of course, if you're going out kind of mobile or to a site in the woods, you can't have a high power, you can't have like a couple of 100 watts, because you need a generator, and it just all it's not practical. People hear the generator for miles away. What's that generator going in the woods on a Sunday morning? Yeah, right. So you need a decent aerial. We used to run low power, perhaps 10, 20 watts, something like that. With a decent aerial, you could get miles, cover the whole town. And not only that, we did get a report one Sunday from France. One of the lads' relatives was over there, on the north coast of France. It wasn't that far across the channel, but found us on his transistor radio. There we are, sort of 15 watts, something like that, with a decent aerial. So we were all in the pub one night. I do remember this well, even though I'm getting old and it's nearly 50 years ago. All in the pub one night, and we're sort of mulling over the problems. You don't want your transmitter confiscated, obviously, along with the power supply, your cassette tape recorder, your car battery, all the gear. You want the aerial hidden. So after a sort of a few hours chatting and a few beers, someone came up with this idea. We go to the local park, okay, there were some bushes and some trees. It wasn't like woodland, but there was some trees. Put the aerial up in these trees, a really good aerial, really a long length of wire, good vertical section as well. Bring the vertical down, it was sort of greenish colour, thin wire. Bring it down through this bush by the park, one of these park benches. Okay, now the transmitter. This was the clever bit. I love it. I think this was the best idea that any of us had ever had. Okay, as I said before, girl, young woman, 20, 21 years old, pram, no baby in the pram. What's in the pram? You've guessed. What's in the pram? There she is, sitting on the park bench. Okay, here's the pram. Just sort of, this is the end of the bench. Here's the pram here. All right, with the blankets, the hood's up. Yeah, it's like one of these old-fashioned prams. Got the hood up, and as I say, there's no baby in there. In the pram is our transmitter, our car battery, cassette tape recorder. Okay, with some tapes that need to be changed. 1, 2, 3 marked in order. The power supply was a valve transmitter, so the car battery worked the valve heaters. The HT for the transmitter was from a transistorized inverter that we built. Excellent. The aerial, the pram's right here, end of the park bench. Aerial just comes out of the bushes and clips onto a little insulator, tiny little bit sticking out of the side of the pram. You just, with a crocodile clip onto there. We preloaded the aerial. We'd taken it all there beforehand, loaded up the aerial, left all the settings as they were, and that was it. We were ready to go. I've got a cup of tea now. Any aerial, especially if on something like medium wave, you're going to need a decent earth system, which we didn't have. You need radials, earth stakes, all this sort of thing. To make the whole system effective, we didn't have an earth at all, but it did work surprisingly well. With no earth at all, we couldn't start banging in earth stakes and running wires all across through the wooded area where these trees were. So anyway, it was all set up. We got the ATU in the pram and everything. We'd all loaded all this up beforehand. So on the Sunday morning, the girl walks into the park. Okay, now she's doing all this herself now. She's on her own. Walks into, we're in the bushes over there, like 50 yards away, a few of us there. Sits down, little crocodile clip out the bushes onto the little bit of metal sticking out the side of the pram on the insulator. Okay, she adjusts the blanket like she's saying to the baby. Power on, right? Inverter starts up. Everything starts going, and we told her, just wait a couple of minutes. Press play on the tape recorder. She knew which tape to put on and all this business. And we're on the air. Well, she was. We weren't. We were in the bushes. She is sitting in the park committing a criminal offence. Excellent. What could be better? One of the lads, when we were in the pub, has suggested we go a bit further, have a second tape recorder in the pram under the blanket with a crying baby. Not screaming, but just sort of crying and whimpering. And we didn't do that, of course, but he said, oh no, it'll sort of add to the realism and all this nonsense. The thing was, as I think I pointed out, you've got to be careful with these blankets over the transmitter. The valves got extremely hot. Imagine the blanket and the pram catching fire. Okay, so you've got this sort of crying baby, the girl rushing through the park with the pram that's on fire, smoke and flames, and this baby in it crying. So, oh dear. Anyway, it didn't catch fire, and we didn't use the idea of the second cassette tape with the baby on it. So it was working. It was on the air, and it was working. Would have worked far better with an earth, as I've said, but it covered the town. It was good. The park was reasonably high up as well. It wasn't sort of in a dip. So the Sunday was successful, but what was disappointing, the GPO didn't turn up. Obviously we didn't really want them to turn up, but it would have been interesting to see what they're going to do. They'd come to the park and look around like, what's going on, where's the transmitter? But anyway, they didn't turn up. So that it was all successful. We got reports from our various sort of listening stations in and around the town, and it had gone very well. Harry, who I shall call him, I mentioned him in one of the other videos, Harry and his granny. Harry, in his wisdom during the week, he went and put these, he was digging slots, not across the grass, and putting wire radials in. under the bushes and where the trees were, covering all with leaves. Did it very well, and he had a little bit of top of a copper pipe sticking out of the ground like that, just by the park bench. Because he was saying, oh, we need an earth. You know, we all knew that we needed an earth system, but I suppose none of us could be bothered really. Anyway, he went and did that, and on the following Sunday, we got there early without the girl. We just took the pram, and very early Sunday morning, and we're setting it all up. We collected the earth, used the metal body of the pram as the kind of the chassis of the transmitter, clipped the earth on, and it loaded up, and we got far more aerial current. It was really good. We had one of the thermocouple ammeters in there, army surplus, in the pram. The pram, actually, also what we had done is improve the suspension on the pram. I nearly forgot that bit, because what with the car battery and all the stuff in, I mean, car batteries are heavy, and we used a pretty big one, heavy duty one, so it would last, the duration sort of thing. Don't want the car battery dying after sort of half an hour. So we had to improve the suspension on the pram. Oh dear. Anyway, so off we went on the next Sunday. The girl came in with the pram. This time, one clip onto the little copper pipe, the other one for the aerial from the bushes. She was up for it. She loved it all. Brilliant stuff. And we went on the air, and it was great. Far better signal with the earth. Far better signal around the town. Because the trouble is with a short, if the area was short, as it would be on medium wave, I would say you're talking about, I don't know, middle of medium wave, what you said, 250 metres, somewhere there, medium wave. Half wave is going to be half of that, 175 metres. You really want a 175 metre long piece of wire, or half of that if it's a quarter wave. And if it's a quarter wave, as a lot of you will know, it's current fed. You've got to have an earth. So anyway, we got over the earth problem, or Harry did anyway. I don't think he took his granny into the woods and got her cutting slots in the ground with a slave. I don't think his granny was up to that. I just said 175 metres, no, half of 250 metres. Get 250 metres on the dial, where's that? Yeah, where Radio 1 used to be. So 250 metres, half of that is 125 metres, that's half wave aerial. And then half that again. So it's 62 and a half metres for a quarter wave. Or even that, 60 odd metres of wire, that is a lot. And that's only a quarter wave. You're going to need a good earth. Anyway, that aside, it all went very well. I'll just shut that window over there, it's starting to rain. I remember looking around, there's a girl, sitting on the park bench. She's got the pram next to her. She's reading a book. She was keeping an eye on the book. Well, we were 50 yards away that way from her in the bushes. So, the sign was, if we do that, just reach under the blanket, flick the switch off, undo the croc clips and just wander off through the park, that was fine. But she looked perfectly innocent, just reading a book. There's her pram. People think that the baby's asleep in the pram. There are other people in the park, people walking a dog. I remember there were some kids playing with a ball, kicking a football around. Nice summer's day, Sunday morning, coming up to Sunday lunchtime in the park. Look around, it's all perfectly innocent. And yet it was a pirate radio transmitting site. Brilliant. It was the third or fourth Sunday, can't remember. As I say, I'm going back nearly 50 years, but that's when the GPO turned up. We'd been doing this at the weekends, and we were actually coming to the end of it anyway, because it had been fun. My fun was building transmitters. I like sitting in my workshop at the bench building transmitters. That's where I got my fun from. The actual pirating, the DJ chap, he loved it. He loved making up the tapes ready for the transmission. He was good as well. He was a good DJ. I think he was a builder by trade, but he was good at DJing anyway. I also enjoyed aerials. I still do. I like experimenting with aerials. So we were coming to the end anyway, but the GPO turned up, We saw them. Just a couple of, we saw their van, because you can't miss their van, and we were looking out obviously for whoever's coming into the park. There was one entrance or two entrances, sort of in and out or whatever. Anyway, they wandered in, and we recognised them. We didn't sort of give the girl the signal because we wanted to see what they were doing. They looked around, obviously looking for an aerial. They knew they'd reached the site. They knew that the signal was that strong that they'd reached where the transmitter was. They just a question of finding the aerial and the transmitter. They looked up at the trees, didn't see anything because, as I said, the aerial wire was very thin green wire, dark green, same colour as the leaves of the trees. So they went back to the van, and we wondered what they were doing. They returned a few minutes later with a little transistor radio. They're doing all this, trying to sort of direction find. They realised that they were on top of the transmitter because the directional properties of the ferrite rod aerial, when you're that close to the transmitter, it just falls apart. It doesn't matter where you turn it, it just blasts, it just overloads the front end. So they're looking around again, obviously for a bunch of teenage hippies, which we were, that we had the hair and the beard, and as you did in the 60s. Oh dear, dreadful. Good job I haven't got any photographs. I think I've got photographs somewhere of me like that. And they look around, there's the girl sitting by the pram reading a book, people walking dogs, kids playing in the park, summer's day, what's wrong with that? All perfectly innocent. And they obviously didn't know what to do. They're walking around. They turned the transistor radio off at this point, because no point in having that on. They're looking up continually for the aerial. They're looking in bushes. Now we were in the bushes, so we had to sort of keep very quiet. In fact, where we were in the bushes, you could sort of get out of the back way of the bushes. So had they approached us, we would have just sloped off. We eventually did the thumbs down to the girl because they were beginning to kind of get into the bushes and go around the back of the bushes. They were beginning a thorough search of the park because they knew it was there. So we did the thumbs down. So she's reading her book. I think she got engrossed in the book. Eventually she saw it, a thumbs down. And she reached under the blanket, flicked the switch. That cut the battery, the car battery, so everything went off. Disconnected the little crock clip for the aerial, pushed that into the bushes. She did it all exactly as she was supposed to. Just pulled the earth wire off the little copper pipe sticking out the ground, stuffed that under the blanket, and then wandered off up the footpath. Actually walked past these two chaps. And she wandered out of the park. I mean, had they suspected her, you can't really go up to kind of a girl, 20-year-old young woman in the park, start asking her questions. It's not the done thing. So they might have got arrested themselves. Anyway, what she did, the plan was she walked a couple of streets away, and it was the girlfriend of one of the lads, and he was waiting. He was parked round the corner somewhere in his van with his mate, and they lifted the pram into the back of the van, shut the doors, and that was that. And the plan was that everyone goes up to the pub, the local pub, which wasn't far, after it all finished. Of course, the GPO lads didn't know the transmitter had gone off, let alone know that all the gear had left the park under their noses. We watched them. They eventually turned the transistor radio on again. No signal, of course, and I think that really annoyed them because they're looking around. They knew that they'd been seen. They knew that the pirates had kind of visual contact with them. Well, I say that. Perhaps they didn't. I mean, that was usually the case. That they get close to the transmitter site, the transmitter goes off, they know they've been seen. Perhaps that wasn't the case this time, I don't know, because they'd been in the park for quite some time looking around, and the transmitter stayed on. They wouldn't have known when it had gone off because they'd turned their radio off. Anyway, they they went back to the van. They searched everywhere. They're never going to find 1/4-inch copper pipe sticking out of the ground by the bushes. The aerial, they just didn't spot it, because the vertical section was kind of in the bushes, which were quite high. You know, these rhododendron bushes, that's what they were. They're quite high. Then this little wire, you know, you'd even if you knew where it was, you'd have a job to see it. So that was that. Yeah, that was. I think it was 3 or 4 Sundays in a row, and that was that. We didn't have any more use for the pram and the gear really, because where else can you go with a pram? You need the aerial, and preferably an earth. No good going down to the beach with the pram, sitting on the promenade, because you've got no aerial. No good being in the town somewhere. You know, you've got to have the aerial. This was always the problem. But there was something else we did actually with the pram. We transmitted for 2 hours using the pram. I'm not going to tell you about that now. I think the video is getting about 25 minutes, half an hour or something. Plus I've got my digestive biscuits and my coffee. So I'll put them in some oil. Oh, never mind. Oil my inner workings. So yeah, happy days. As the video is getting quite long, I'm not going to tell you about the next one now. I'll do another video, because it's quite funny what we do with the pram next. It's quite a good one. Well, they're all quite. I mean, I find it all quite funny looking back, and it's as I'm telling the story, as I'm sort of relating what happened from nearly 50 years ago, more stuff's coming back into my mind. You know, flooding back. So, oh yes, this happened, and oh, I remember that happened. So, hope you enjoyed watching the video. I suppose I could have called it, would have got more viewers if I'd called it something like the illegal activities of a 20-year-old girl in the park, in the bushes, or something like that. But there we are. I wonder if she's watching. You never know, she might be watching. I won't mention her name, just in case she is. Anyway, happy days. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye for now.